I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm not quite here with Tank, though it looks like he's on. Um, I actually fell asleep and did not know that he was on. I was getting everything ready, up and ready before to start, and that was probably about an hour and a half ago. And then for some reason, things just sleep overtook me. I do not know when Tank came on. I'm sure he was yelling, but I couldn't hear him. So anyway, Tank is here online, sort of. At least he's connected to the Zoom. So I do apologize for that. I wasn't quite sure. I was trying to actually go on early. I was trying to maybe it was all because of shifty shift. He was during the impeachment. I tried to listen, but it just overtook me. 20. I think I got maybe 20 minutes in, but it's just it's almost just too much to listen to see what is going on with his crafting of this this tale that he's trying to get everyone to go along with, this narrative. And it's just not it just doesn't hold up. But I don't know if everyone's it's having the same effect, but I found it so difficult to listen to. It was really really difficult. But it does appear that they're still moving underway, but it doesn't look like they're actually convincing anybody. It just looked like they're just trying to fill air time, and I think it's hard to it's hard to say how much they're making any kind of impact, because it doesn't hold up. That's what I said. It's so hard to listen to, and I'm usually can listen through a lot of this stuff just to do it, but it's almost like maybe maybe it puts everyone to sleep. Well, I don't know if there was any other updates from Tank, because I didn't get to hear. Well, hopefully he'll come on here, and we'll get down to it. I've had I think also must have been just tired. A lot of work going in to trying to fix a email problem. Still having email issues. It does seem like it's just really difficult. These systems should be fairly simple to implement now in the world of web development, right? No, this is a purposeful around the world to stop emails from systems from functioning just as it's just a login, right? Get an email, confirm, request a new password. It's simple, right? But your emails don't go through, right? So dealing with that also. Anyway, just it does seem to take a lot of wasted time dealing with these things. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, I guess what I'll do is I'm just going to go through our group, WWG1 WGA Love Telegram group. All right,
there we go. And we got
oh, there you are.
National Parliament all stepped down at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, Dank,
Wait.
Dank,
So,
Dank. We're live. Dank, we're live.
hey, Dan, what's going
Hi.
on?
Sounds like you didn't
Sorry about
know.
that.
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry, man, I'm live. I didn't know.
Hey, Dan, I'm sorry, man. I didn't realize
We went live.
Yeah, I
How's it
know.
going for you?
I'm sorry that I wasn't there when you came online. Well, I was there, but I wasn't awake. I fell asleep.
Yo, yeah, man, it goes that way. It goes that way.
Yeah, so, what's going on, man? You report on the...
Yeah, on everything, love. Not everything, but more relaxed with everyone. Right. Wait, Dan, hang on, hold on.
Okay. Yeah.
So, hey, man, what happened with the, so what did you see happen today with the impeachment? More sham wow? I heard you listen to it.
What I heard was put me to sleep. That's what the problem was. Adam Schiff is so it's just hard to listen to. I mean, I put in probably a good 20 minutes, and it literally, put me to sleep. So I was trying to get through it, but there's nothing there. It's just it's hard to listen to even. But
no, it is hard to listen to. I only caught a piece of it, but actually, I saw that Judge Roberts, there, kind of shut down the fiasco when they started it, when Nadler and all the arrogant, deep state demolition team there that happened to be Democrats, right? When they were, they were just running down the Senate. It's amazing to me that anyone could be that self-righteous after the ridiculous underground impeachment nonsense they pulled in Congress. They didn't allow them to call any witnesses. They shut down on every level, and then they don't even have a good case. It's not like they have a solid case. They have nothing. There's not even a law broken. The original reason why they called the impeachment isn't even, it's baseless. They totally left those things behind because they were proven wrong. And now it's rocks out. The evidence is overwhelming. I'm like, you guys are garbage. It is.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. It's like you go into your neighbor's home, right, and then you start just tearing them apart, right? Yeah. So that these House managers go into the Senate, and they start tearing apart the Senate. I mean, in any kind of trial, right? Do you think it's a good idea for you to go in and start tearing apart who your jury is, right? You got 100 people there that are the jury, right? And they're going to decide. So why are you going to go in and then start treating them, disrespectfully?
Yeah, you know what I did find to be amazing, right? There's no chance of winning. So all they can do is throw a temper tantrum, right?
Right.
They get there, right? Because they know, if based on the case they presented, right, they can't win. There's no way to win. Because if anybody, I mean, really, it's actually, I can't even imagine even the Democrats are buying this. Obstruction of justice, to prove obstruction of justice, you have to show that there's intent, right? Well, think about it. If all the, insane, like Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Rashida Tlaib, they have been, Rashida Tlaib wasn't a congresswoman for, 3 hours before she's cussing about how she's going to impeach the president, right? Like, this has been the goal. So what that is that is the intent to impeach. In other words, to completely neglect their actual responsibilities, to ignore any facts, not to have even a just cause to do this. That is committing fraud against a public official. It is obstruction of justice because you didn't even give the president due process, and then you justify it and say, oh, we don't have to. Then you have the nerve to show up at the Senate and demand that they make up for your mistakes. Oh, gosh, it's a nightmare.
Right. It is remarkable. No, I think we're going to see a very much uh, a backlash happening against them. This is their only last resort. They don't have anything else. They don't have a candidate, right? So they only have this, and the purpose. Because again, they don't. There's no possible way, that they can actually win, right? The impeachment trial. They can't. They've known this, but why do it then? It's only to basically distract from the draining of the swamp, right? Because they need to do something to basically draw attention elsewhere, and that's all this is to draw attention other than what's going on against them. So you got Trump pretty much ignoring them and going to Davos and start talking about a new path forward for the world, right? To go under nationalism, right, and respecting the people of each country, and it's a pro-worker movement, right? Because you have the workers gaining faster than the upper level management, right? Which has been the complete opposite of what's been going on for decades. There's only the upper end of every organization makes any money, and they keep squeezing out any profits into the hands of the everyday worker. Now they're growing much faster, and that means they also have more money to spend, which means more money to put into the economy and make it move. So I don't know what else went on in Davos.
Well, you know what? I will say this though. You have, I think it's Japan that has nationalized their banks, which I'd say that's a pretty good indicator. I think that Benjamin Fulford, who actually lives in Japan, he was reporting on this. And, a broke clock is right at least twice a day, right? So he was talking about that, and there's that's kind of a move right now. If you nationalize the banks, you put the banks back in the hands of the people. But we know for a fact all of the banks have the opportunity right now to be nationalized. Actually, that is on the table for the first time ever because Federal Reserve, all these different Rothschild and the Order of the Black Sun, they cannot pay their debts. And because they can't pay their debt's been called in.
Well,
this is something that
on this new meeting in this World Economic Forum that Trump went to, he brought with him the two new appointees for the Fed, right? The ones that are interested in gold and asset-backed money.
Interesting.
So that means I think except for one person on the Fed board, I think is all been appointed by Trump now.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's about time. I mean, it's the Fed has been basically they've been running the show for a long time, right? I mean, they basically told Trump less than a year ago that they didn't have to answer to him, that they were the top dogs. They were running the show. And then soon after that, they realized their system didn't work and the charter was gone. They haven't been able to raise rates since. It's like, where you open your mouth again, boys? You don't want to check the scoreboard. So.
Yeah, by the way, you have no right to make money anymore.
Oh, you have no right to even hold money.
You can't hold money again.
Yeah, you don't have you don't have a license or a charter. You cannot do it, right?
Right.
So
what are you going to do?
Right. So, it's funny. I look at the things that are public that are very solid pieces of evidence to show that what we've been saying is true, right? You have all the parliament shut down in Russia. You have the banks being nationalized in Japan and various other countries, too, that I heard of, but I haven't confirmed yet. You have the Federal Reserve doesn't raise, they say they're going to raise rates every month for the next 2 years, and then they don't raise rates. They haven't raised rates since, and all they've done is take the rates down. It's like, does that back up that they don't have a charter? I'd say it's pretty good evidence. If they have a plan, they don't stick to it. And then they're considered to be the masterminds, of how the economy is going to flow.
Right.
and the stock market has been off the charts, breaking records. It doesn't make sense based on the typical formulas that they would use to get results. And even now, the economists, they keep talking about things, and they don't understand what's going on. Like, why does this keep happening? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's a glass house, right? It's a big thing.
Right.
But what it really is it was always a sham, and now it's just actually being balanced out. So, but there's like so many really incredible witnesses everywhere,
Yeah,
and I'm just
I'm
excited.
Mm-hmm.
It's very exciting. Actually, any news from Kim that we'd be excited about?
Well, Kim did tell me that. Okay, well, there's a couple things. Yeah, actually. So there was a Zim group, I guess, right, in the RV, and they claimed that they were trying to go through Kim, right, and they were trying to set up a bank in Texas and all stuff, right, and then basically they were like, well, it didn't. Like she said, she couldn't do that. But that's not true. None of that was Kim. That was all the King of the Manna and the fake Kim and all that stuff. Right, that's the first thing. So that was an interesting thing. That even in the RV, it's like, well, they're just looking for a way out, right? It's like, so all you people out there with that, it's like, I don't know what would happen. Now, I'm going to say this, but I want to be very clear that I do not know what this means, and it definitely does not mean that you're going to be able to exchange your currency the way anyone thought. That amount of money will not be available ever, right? No one's going to be a trillionaire or billionaire, and just because somebody bought a lot of it, because they had a lot of money, they're not going to be rewarded for that. That much I'm very confident. However, Kim did tell me that she did make an offer to the governments to clean up this currency mess. That's what she said. Right? Now, I have no idea what that offer is. I don't know what that entails yet. Okay. She and I have talked about that before, right? We've talked about doing things a different way. That could mean, buying people's currency back from what they bought it, or it could mean, actually giving them a significant sum of money for the currency they bought, but not nearly what they thought. And I'm sure that number would be governed, and it would be based on activity and projects and things like that, right? So that is something that's out there, which is the first time she's mentioned that. So it would not be an RV. I want to be very clear, and you will have to sign a letter that says Tank and Dan were right. And, no, you don't.
No. That's a good point. Make sure that that's in there.
Yeah. But so basically, but she mentioned that. So I think that's an interesting point. I mean, that's really fascinating that she's at that level right now. That's how confident she is in what she's doing.
I did actually listen to today, about 2 hours ago, I guess, something like that. I put on Restored Republic via the GCR because someone had called me, and one of our viewers here that likes to keep up with us, and said that there was now talk that there was going to be revaluing or doing a GCR on the Zim. I guess it's kind of what you're talking about right now. Though I started listening to Restored Republic via the GCR, and it was all exactly the same thing. I mean, one of them. It was like, did they mention Davos? Yeah, they mentioned that Trump was in Davos. All right, but really didn't talk about anything in particular, that something had happened, or that is really, other than, hey, the money's in the accounts.
Right, I know. I mean, it's the RV is like flip the record, second verse, same as the first, repeats. Right. I could give you. I could pick up a piece of intel from 6 years ago, 5 years ago that I wrote myself. That if I read it to the RV crowd and I put it back out there like it was new, they would go bananas. They would think it was the greatest thing ever because because it would sound just like what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
It has not changed. The script has not changed. They have repeated it, and they have programmed everybody.
Yeah.
Programming repetition, muscle memory, right? Over and over, the same. And that's hard. That's hard to break out of. So I'm empathetic with that, with everybody going through that, and I've been that person. So, and I wouldn't.
I've got it.
Very.
I got it. I know the best way to do this RV. All right. So
What?
when they want to go ahead and put in their projects and that, the first thing they have to do is they have to burn their dinar and their Zim.
Yep. That's inedible. All the currency will be burned. It has to be, because it misleads people.
Yeah. Well, I did have a thought though, and and I hope this is okay, even though I know that putting out dates and things like that. But when we come up with our 1 year anniversary for this broadcast, that we could do GCR the Big Lie, and then I could burn some Zim on the air.
Wow.
Just go through a quad.
Well, if that's the dictate, I don't want to burn money and actually get in trouble for it, to be honest. But yeah, we can do something.
Oh, how do I get in trouble for burning a quad of Zim?
I don't know. I mean, but,
I know it would be pretty dramatic for those people who have Zim, right? But I felt that would be I do happen to have a quad with me. Most of my other quads are all in the U.S., right? And I just happened to collect one here for a trade that I did, right, for a quad. But the rest of it, is all in the U.S. and in the hands of, safely kept away, and it's been on ledger. See, all of my stuff is on ledger. So, except for this particular quad, it's not.
It's interesting. I knew this guy in the Intel world, right? And he would speak directly to Chinese elders, right? And or some of the Chinese elders, and he spoke with all these different people, right? It was really, really well connected. And he had already cashed in his, he had $155 million that he had the actual printout of the account, right? Sitting there that he exchanged, and he couldn't touch it, right? Couldn't touch the money. Another guy came in, he had another $155 million, right? So we get him on the call, and he was like, yeah, sure, just like for me, like, so yeah, because these guys had connections with like the admiral internals, right? And she's like, sure, you want to exchange it? She goes, I'll give you a code right now. And she just made up a code on the spot, right? And entered it in the system. Got his full name, got all his information, right? And was going to let this guy go exchange. And she was making a point, but for me, like she did this kind of stuff for me all the time, to show me that, she wasn't crazy, right? Like she wasn't making things up. So she often has allowed me to sit in on these calls to watch her do these things and then watch what happens as a result, right? How they block, how they, they're hiding it. Lo and behold, this guy could have had $155 million, and he, they ended up, blocking her. He never got it that far. And he told somebody, and then never called us back, right? Like we did him a disservice. What Kim gave me, the first conversation I ever had with Kim gave me a code for $1 million, right? And she said, here, she goes, run this up the line at the Pentagon. She goes, bring down $1 million. She goes, I guarantee it'll open everything else up, right? Didn't even get a chance to do it. I sent it to myself, but I wasn't sure what to do because I was so different than what I've been used to, right? And lo and behold, though, they ran it through without me even doing anything. They ran the code. And they gave us telling me, like, how they don't want a dime to come in for the people. And I have watched that time and time again. Matter of fact, after Hurricane Michael here in the U.S., I procured, my gosh, 75,000 generators, right? Now, like, Kim basically was like, look, we need this, right? And she was just doing this so that we could demonstrate our good faith, right? Mm-hmm. That we could demonstrate that we'll get the job done because that's what we do, right? So I procured all the generators we needed, and then next thing we had to do was get people down there for debris removal. I already had a team ready. This is right after the hurricane. Right after the hurricane. She has a letter from the president, $108 billion approved. And I was like, finally, because I would get paid for the, even if it was just immediate, that I would be able to get paid for the work I'd done to procure these generators, right? And think about it, like you make all these companies stronger because you're buying their generators, you're putting money out there, and they had everything set up, ready to go, and Steve Mnuchin blocked it.
Yep.
And
That's
and it was the Citadel here in New York, this like mercenary group, right? The Citadel, that blocked it by force. Blocked the guys by force going in. Now it's just so amazing, like, cause even like the guy who was involved, he didn't think that could happen. He like, how could that be? And but time and time again, that's what they've been doing. They play the same game over and over again. So, but it would appear, and I'll tell you right now, I'm so certain, and at this point, there is no option for any governments or anyone else to get money before the people get money. It's not an option. I don't think it's on the table, to be honest. Kim basically gave them an option months ago. I was on the phone with the Central Bank of China and the Five-Star Trust, and she gave them an offer. And she was basically like, it's either my way or it's no way. And what have they done? What have they done since? Nothing. They have done nothing.
Well, the GCR is going to happen. We sent out our Chinese elders to let everyone know.
Yep. That's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, so how do we see this is going to unfold? Because we got a few days of trial in the impeachment, right? So that'll be ending. I don't know if they'll get to witnesses. I mean, I kind of think that they get to witnesses, and then they try the deep state, right? And just start bringing out everything, and then you end up with people being arrested. And so this, but maximum, this is another month of time, and people are things are gonna start hitting all these individuals. There's more things coming out against Comey. There's more things coming out against. There's like even in Puerto Rico, more people got arrested for holding up all this aid. Right. So yeah,
people, things are going down everywhere. I mean, right now, if there was ever a time, right? I mean, so they're taking action. Those guys are taking action. You know what I think would really be just though right now is that because they were going to bribe the Senate, and their money gets blocked on them, and so Nancy Pelosi couldn't get the money. All senators, whatever, who was ever, on the take, couldn't get their money. Wouldn't now be the best time for the people to just,
well,
all people who have projects to get funded?
I was listening to some of the backstage quarterbacking that's going on with impeachment, right? So there was people that were, doing tallies of, who's doing what and who's on what side, and talking about these 6 Republicans, these rhinos, right, that are there that are the swing, like these are the only ones in play, only 6 of them, and it seems like even Romney is not on board with what's going on. So
really? Oh wait, which side of it? What do you mean, Romney's on board? With the genocide side, or
yeah, he's not aligning with the Democrats. That's the first I heard anything about that would say to me that the Republicans are going to remain firm, all of them, and they're going to lose some Democrats in the Senate. Right? I don't know how many of the Democrats they're going to lose. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose all of the Democrats. I wouldn't be surprised if they all vote against it. See, it was a shame.
Yeah, just a reminder to every single Democratic senator. I want you to remember this because it's true. You can check it out. That Nancy Pelosi conveniently had arrangements to go over to Afghanistan to greet the NATO troops
With what?
that she was taking 96 members of her family.
Yeah.
In other words, everybody she knows was going with her, who she wanted safe. And she was taking, a few select members of, the Congress, like, terror squad, right? So during that time, she made arrangements because she was the Black Dragon at that time, and they suicide bombed her. And President Trump was supposed to give a State of the Union speech while she was gone. And the suicide bomber was going to go in to do as much damage as possible. And you know what? She didn't give a damn that every one of you Democrats were sitting there in that place while she was over safe with her family.
Right. And then Trump grounded the plane, and they're sitting there in their shuttle vans heading to the airport to get on the Air Force jets, and he grounded them. So yeah, but these people should wake up. They are all expendable. If they're all, it's all for the sacrifice. Okay? It's all right. You're in heaven, their heaven. You will be rewarded for your sacrifice of your life. But of course, 96 of Nancy Pelosi's family and close friends are all safe in Afghanistan.
Who would have thought of that as a safe place? Jeez.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, by the way, right? So for the Senate, like, just so you guys know, every one of you who votes to side with Nancy Pelosi, remember, she was very much willing to kill all of you.
Yeah.
Without even blinking an eye.
No, she was even celebrating it, like having a holiday doing it.
Oh yeah, she got stopped on the pavement in front of the White House. hey, your travel arrangements denied. It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
But so this whole thing to me, I'm just amazed how much progress where everything is moving, all the energy is moving and flowing in our direction. I got invited out to speak to the anti-vax, pro lobbyist group tomorrow night. I'm trying to see if they'll let me just tape it and go live. Speak to them about explaining what we're doing with Lawful America.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
But that's huge though, because the same group I've talked to for 5-6 months, they've never invited me out to speak before.
Yeah.
So. No. And today, oh my gosh, I want to watch it. I'm going to see if I can get this to you. So, at a Board of Education meeting, and I'm not even sure where it is, they, the parents got up and they read the notice to the Board of Education, and they informed them that every one of you will be receiving a certified letter, right? The same one that we sent out to all the state departments, the state Department of Education. And from what I heard from Michelle, it was really, really well done. A really powerful group got up and made sure to read that out loud to let them know you've been put on notice.
Excellent.
If you try to violate this right. And I loved it. I'm like, damn right you did.
That's wonderful, the news. So it works, right? You make a stand, you take your steps, and things change. So it's time to step up, do something.
Yeah, and I think, they count on us not knowing what to do, right? So this guy today was, I guess, been going off trying to, discredit me, right? He said, no, he's a scam. He's doing this with Manna, and he had another scam with currency, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. There is no constitutional violation being broken here. I study the law; it's my thing. And he's going off to all these mothers trying to turn. And for the most part, when somebody's that aggressive, you think, oh, they must know what they're talking about. Maybe we should leave this guy out, right? So it takes, when it's just how people are. There's who said it the loudest and most convincing the last time they heard it. That's who they follow.
Right.
So, but just so interesting when they do that, because I'm like, okay, so with the RV, right? It's true. I promoted the RV. I did not believe it was a scam. I thought it was real.
Right.
I had some of the best intel sources in the world. I would get information directly from the Chinese owners chat room on their Thursday morning meeting that they had every single week. I would get information directly from General Dunford, General Thomas, at the top of the Pentagon. I had direct contacts to the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and the White Hats. I had a White Hat commander who was over 300 exchange centers who would give me direct intel. I actually sat with the man who designed the entire global financial system, and he told me to my face that the entire system was designed to collapse. And his name is on every single treasury in the country. Right? Sat in my car several times, going over these things in great depth. Right? And that was because Kim had seen his signature, and she knew who he was. So I arranged meetings, and I just got to sit in and listen.
Like great, that's a great education.
And I got,
I think there needs to be a movie about your life.
It'll be called Not Quite Dan.
No. It's like,
no, but this one, I forgot this one. That I could put out this call, like I wanted someone who was in the process to reach out to me, right? And the historians for the Global Currency Reset, who work directly for the United Nations, directly for OMB, they reached out and they recruited me. We worked together, and they gave me the offer that told me that I would be a general for the United Nations, and I could be over the humanitarian projects for the U.S.
Amazing.
So imagine all this stuff.
How many stars would they give you? Would you be like a 5-star general?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if they do stars in the UN. I think everybody's a general though. It's like General Mills.
There's just it's just a general status, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the point is that because the United Nations is a military organization, that's the truth, right? It's like these are all the military armed forces. So it's like, but it was the, when you're talking, like you spoke directly, to the people with Swiss-Indo, right? Like you flew out there, like you're in the Philippines, like you had one of the Marcoses over your house, a few months ago. It's like it's amazing. It's like
So
it's like think about having that kind of credibility between us, right? I mean, that's just a fraction of the things that you've done, obviously.
Well, it's like almost like a non. It's actually even a non-event, right? Because there's I'm not trying to downplay it as much, but to say that it happens so often with meeting the signatories of the world assets. I mean, it's like so many of them, right? And I think that they believe it, every one of them, and not because they're delusional at all. It's not because they're trying to cause a scam. That they have a foundation, and I believe that they actually think they're doing. Now, some of them may literally. I can't say all of them are, trying to be on the up and up. And maybe they were trying to do a scam. I can't say, but I don't think Swiss-Indo was trying to scam anyone. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? They're not trying to get anybody's money. They're trying to give money. They're trying to pay off everyone's debt. So this is not now. Their success doesn't mean that they weren't because they weren't successful or they had limited success. Doesn't mean that they were scamming. Right? They were trying their best. So the people here in the Philippines that I've met also that had sitting on a bunch of assets and historical bonds. They believe that they're sitting on real assets, and at one time they were. Maybe it was 50 years ago, right? But they're still sitting on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember my friend Ralph, the former CIA, and one that kind of gave me the education first about this, the GCR stuff that was going on. That was about the first time back in 2014 when this with the Super Pacellis was coming about. One of the things he told me was how he was bringing down some assets here in the Philippines, right? And they were in a cave up on a mountain, right? and he had to go up the mountain, and he had to bring up money, right, for them. And and it was part of the system of how and this was repeated. I found this same thing happening in China that was happening in the Philippines. They would bring like money up, to offer the local village, right, that's sitting on these assets, and and it became a source of funds, almost like a tourism, you high-end financial tourism. Yeah, and you would basically bring your offering of cash, right, and they turn around and give you some of these assets that at some point had true value, or in this case, he said that they were real, right, and he was able to take them and use them, right, because they're not sitting in a bank somewhere and leveraged over and over and over, because maybe they were leveraged once. I don't know what I don't know what the mechanism was, but they were able to use them in some way, right? And that's why he was able to go there. But the same in China, the local people around the mountain warehouses was made into its own little economy, right? Money would come in and they'd feed the mountain, right?
Oh. Wow.
But considering these assets are not valid anymore, right? But they still exist. I do feel like the people in these mountain areas, or these villagers, and they were sitting on top of these caretakers, right, of the assets, were promised large amounts when this time came of the world reset, right? When the time when all of these assets were going to be coming to bear fruit, that they would get their reward, right? There was some caretaker agreements, or that they would, they were able to take some of the asset, like gold, for example, out every year and sell it, and that's what they would do. And they would literally, it would be real gold. They'd move it out from their vaults. I got described some of how these vault system works, right? And they would literally take out just it's just a couple bars, really, but that would feed, this whole mountain, right, from this little amount that they would take out, because that's what they were allowed to as the caretakers. And this goes back to the people, and of course the main caretakers, that they were well off in this, but they still didn't have, let's just say that they were still just feeding off of this. It's almost like a welfare program, right? You only have so much. You don't aspire, to do more. Okay? You're just in this system, right? And you get this much coming in, you get this much coming in every year, and they keep repeating it, right? And then they're not able to, they don't do business, right? That is the business, right? They don't create new inventive ways of, making restaurants or whatever. I don't know, but they don't. It's all about just paying for buying supplies, and they have big parties and festivals every year to celebrate this. So, anyway, I don't know how we got down this road, but anyway.
Well, no, it's relevant. No, it is relevant because this is the Great Deception, right? So the Great Deception is holding the whole world hostage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very open to talking to any of these people anytime they'd like, right? All these things that they that they think they're that they've got it, they know the system. No, you don't, because you're missing key pieces. And if you had the whole story, you would never continue to support it, because there is no end to that turns out well. Even Swiss Indo, at the highest level, right? In Swiss Indo, it's being controlled in the back end by the Indonesian and Malaysian elders. Right. Now, all the people that you met, I'm sure they were benevolent and lovely and kind. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if you met the Indonesian and Malaysian elders, they would come across to be the most darling, lovely people. But they either knew or believed the only solution was to wipe out most of the planet. And they were part of it. Because if they were bringing that money in, then they knew that would collapse the economy because anybody could see that.
Yeah.
Anybody can look at that and see. You can't just give out money to everybody and say, okay, we did our part later. And every time I talk to people, I talk to a bunch of the different individuals over these trusts, these massive mega trusts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were all saying the same thing. So, well, I already signed off on the RV. It's like, why? How? Wait. And I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot you gave them money, so I don't care. But, like, you know, but it was proven time and time again. You know, they couldn't do anything, right? So thank God they're powerless because their plan was to kill us all off. Thank God. It wasn't a currency reset.
Right.
It was what you currently see is about to be reset with a lot less people. That's what it was. You know, it was I mean, that's the reality of the planet. I've broken down for many times.
Right.
And you're seeing the remnants of it right now, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can tell not everybody got the same memo, right? So even though they pushed the plan back to 2030, right? Like,
yeah.
That's why AOC says by 2030 we're all going to be dead. Well, she's right because their plan was to kill us all off.
Right.
She thinks it's for climate, but it's not. The climate they're talking about is the economic climate, and it's time to kill us all off. And then you have now the CDC just announced to everybody that 2020 is the year where all exemptions must be removed. Why? Well, because they're about to release a whole bunch of biological weapons. So this latest one, the coronavirus, the coronavirus, they're releasing.
Sounds like a new virus. Sounds like a new automobile.
Yeah,
it
does sound like that. The new coronavirus. Anyway, so they, but you can look into it, and the CDC, they own the patent on the coronavirus. In other words, it was created by them. It has now been released by them because they're still trying to find ways to take their biological weapons, create a mass panic, mass vaccinate, so we all become like zombified, just crushed souls walking around, and they can just do whatever they want. They're still on that pattern. That's what they think is justifiable because they think you're so superior to the rest of us.
Right. And that's why it's interesting that Trump in Davos now is talking about these about this new path forward. That this is about nationalism and workers. It almost sounds socialistic, because it's about supporting the workers, right? But I
guess. I mean, so crazy.
No, obviously it's not socialist at all. But
no,
it is.
Yeah, but I can see like he's trying to like live in that cut of that language,
right? Because
to draw attention. It's like it's so subtle you don't even realize it's actually happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's very very subtle as well, but this whole thing is on subtlety. And I mean it's very much Sun Tzu, Art of War. Make them think you're weak when you're strong. Right? Because he doesn't really react to them in a way that makes it look like he's
taking them seriously.
Right, and that that he's able to go ahead and just completely change everything that that they were trying to do and put it in his own favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's something to be said about this. That I remember Kim told me this, how there was no karmic consequences for these people until 2015 or 16.
Why is that?
Right? I don't know. It was part of the contract.
Part of the, yeah. Well, it makes sense if the contract is over and they continued, right? Then that's what makes sense because it wasn't by agreement anymore. Right.
So that is the reason why the mass is standing up and saying, no, you're not going to continue to lie to me about a product that is poisoning my newborn infant. Because we have, at this point, we know that these vaccines do cause autism because the government's paid out billions of dollars for it. We
Right.
know it causes seizures. We know it causes neurological damage. This much we know is true.
Right.
Now think about someone taking your baby, your perfect newborn, alive, vibrant baby, and injecting into something that causes micro strokes on such a level that it presents itself as autism. Because
Right.
you could track back, and if there wasn't vaccines, there would not be autism.
Yep.
So, I mean, autism is as a result. And the pediatrician who is over my kid's pediatrician, who used to be like my next door neighbor, he was telling one of these anti-vax moms, and he's like, look, he's like, yes, I've had incidents, this has happened, and he said, but it's for the greater good. No, it's not. Because in their greater good, we all get killed off. That's never the greatest good. There's always a better option. You freaking idiots. The fact that you all bought in on the let's kill off 90% of all humanity, I just feel like everyone who continues to buy in, like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, what's her name there? The other crazed, insane politician from Maxine Waters.
Oh.
And that one useless guy who's like drew absolutely no votes or interest from anyone. Joe Biden, Barack Obama, every one of them should be executed publicly. They should be hung from the light fixtures in the middle of Washington D.C.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and by the way, that is not me being a radical. That is crazy talk. No, what's crazy talk is to get up in front of the entire world and stutter through a ridiculous version of impeachment that has to happen immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
When you brought up Joe Biden, there's a clip now out there that's showing where he basically snaps, right? And he starts yelling at this reporter, and he's shaking his head up and down at him. I mean, it was such a fast clip, but he gets crazy eyes, right? And like he's literally snapped. That one moment when you just lose it, right? Now he pulled himself back, right? But he was definitely there. He was on the verge of literally just laying it out and going off on them. I mean, but I wish I didn't get to pull up that clip. Maybe I'll get it by tomorrow. I'll try and find it.
This one thing that was said today by the Republicans, I think it was today or yesterday, maybe yesterday, but they said something to the effect of, this power trip has got to stop now.
Right.
And I agree. You know that when Barack Obama, he introduced the Common Core curriculum, right?
Yeah.
Here in the U.S. And when he did that, he basically overruled any rights anyone has. He introduced us and married us to communism. He gave the United Nations authority over us.
Yeah.
That's what he did. Now, here is the reality. He didn't have the right, and we didn't agree to it. And that is the strength that everyone needs to stand with, right? I just keep thinking about this. Like, we all got to be like, no. Like, I don't care what Barack Obama said.
Right.
He's the head of a corporation. He doesn't get to make me do something that's ridiculous like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is
amazing.
One of the things that I've seen going around the world and meeting with a bunch of people in other countries, and they say the one difference that I saw, between Americans, right, and the Americans that I know that would be entrepreneurial, let's just put it as simply as that, is that the Americans don't wait so much for permission to go ahead and create a business or to solve a problem, right? Our real essence is to be able to create these solutions because we don't have to get permission. Everywhere else in the world, and people that I know, their first thing is it legal? Right? Can I do this? And mostly it's an interesting question. I'm not saying that you don't want to do things that are illegal, but the first go-to position is, does the government agree that this can be done?
Right.
And I think that's a big problem in the world, right? I think that's the one thing they're trying to stamp out in America, because I do notice that was the like when trying to train my son-in-law, right, and doing business and things like that. You know it's one of the things I tried to basically move him to, and of course other people that were young people coming into the businesses and working for me, that this aspect of not doing what the government says, right? Especially if the law was changed, right, by the people, but the government still doesn't want to go along with it. You don't just back off, right? You plunge forward. Listen, the law's already changed. Doesn't matter that the governments are not going along with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is more related to the dispensaries in California, right? Opening up a dispensary, the city doesn't want to go along with it. They don't want to give you a license. They're public servants that must abide by the law. And if you go up and request a business license, and you slip them under their little window the form that they're requiring you to do to fill out to get a license, and then they just push it back through the window to you, say, oh, we can't touch that. This is because they're overriding you, right? Overriding your ability to go out and do what you want, right? Abide by the law, right? But they're going to go ahead and decide they're not going to go along with it. Now, if you don't know what to do, right, or even if you're dealing with a lot of attorneys, they'll just, they won't be on your side, right? So you have to understand that you actually have the right, to force them to take that application, and that they have to do what their duty is. They have to rule right there. They have to basically stamp it. They have to deny it, they have to approve it, or they have to make it pending, right? And those are all legitimate. For them not to do anything means it stops any of the processes of governments if they don't touch it. Swisindo had exactly the same issues in Indonesia. Right? They had documents that they were trying to basically say, these are legitimate documents. We want the central bank to honor them, right? Give us the cash. And the central bank there said, it's not real. Now, they just said it. They didn't give them any documents. They didn't deny their paperwork in writing. Because once they put it in writing that they deny, then you can take the next legal step, which is to go to the court. But without them doing that one step, they're denying them the ability to go ahead and take this to the next level, right? So it's just a tactic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Even hearing you talk about it, like this is part of what I don't hear people talk about enough, are these tactics, and you certainly never hear it in the mainstream.
Oh,
all you see is just acting and posturing in this way of just, I just cannot believe what Trump's doing. They're all act like Trump is dangerous. Trump is like Superman compared to these people. Like, it's incredible. It's incredible. I really, this is one thing I've just been making me furious now for a couple of years, is how the mainstream media spins things and makes just horrible, hateful allegations, right, against this president. They don't even try to report the news. All they do is just this visceral, mean-spirited, Simon Parks era kind of hateful media, right? And it's because they're all guilty. They've all done something awful. That somebody owns their soul, right? And they know it, so they could be a newscaster or whatever. And I kept thinking, like, somebody's got to do something about this. And I've heard lots of different stories, like, oh, they're going to go in there and Trump's going to do this or this one's going to do that. You know what? We're going to do it. I'm not waiting on anybody else to do this. We're about to serve them. And I'm going to hold every one of those lying, hate-filled, genocide advocates responsible for what they've done. Because they're a biggest part of the offense. Because they are controlling the collective consciousness.
Right.
They're soundbite central. All they do is repeat the same boring.
And that's a very good name for my like that soundbite central.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's amazing. Good soundbite. Why don't you put the soundbite out there where Nancy Pelosi announces Agenda 21, right? Why don't you put the soundbite out there with the United Nations in 2015 when the Pope came to the United States, when they got up at the United Nations and they said that they would abolish poverty by the year 2030. And then when you look at their agenda, there's absolutely nothing in there about how they were going to do it, because the way they were going to abolish poverty was to kill off the impoverished.
Yeah.
That is the reality.
Yeah. There won't be any more poverty. That's their plan. We're going to eliminate
Right, you won't
poverty.
get any more poverty because we're killing you. And listen, I'll tell you, I don't know if we talked about this, but I've been building a little network inside the homeless communities, right, in different areas. And I've got some people that are homeless. They reach out to me from different places, right? Some in Texas, some in California. And I asked them to start just keeping notes and tell me what's going on, right? Because they keep reporting me about some really terrifying stuff, right? Terrifying stuff that's happening in these homeless communities.
Right. Because this is a test population, right?
Right. Because in there's even this is actually in Barack Obamacare. There's like things in there that are so subtle that people don't catch on.
You have to be RFID tagged.
Yeah,
that's one of
them. Like the elderly population. If you're over 65, they give you a double dosage of the flu virus, of flu vaccines. But there's all these things that we knew. Lots of people had pointed things out to me. I have never gone through the whole document, but they pointed out things to me. I was like, wait, that's sketchy, right? Because it would appear that he had deemed the elderly, their life wasn't worth saving.
Right.
Now, nobody talks about that, but even more so with the homeless, right? So you have the homeless rate since de Blasio became mayor has doubled, right? From like 193 to over 400 people dying in New York City a year. Homeless people on the streets. You have, and then they're shipping homeless people around. I know for a fact they traffic people, right? In Missouri is another place where we got them. They're down there and they're trafficking people through the homeless communities, right? And then and then over in California, oh my gosh, I've got some folks in there that are like really, really awake and in tune, right? And they're older, and they've been forced to be homeless for 30 years because they knew too much, antagonized, beaten up by the CIA, and all types of members.
Which is pretty much what happened to my friend Ralph. He was unpersoned, right? No social security number, no ID was valid anymore. No retirements. All his bank accounts are gone, right? And all of his special bank accounts that they had, for him, they saved away. They were, and they unpersoned him. Now, it was literally, he was only able to, maintain by the people that were around him that supported him, right? So, he was he had 12 children. So so he had a big support system, so he was able to not be homeless. He would have been homeless otherwise. He also had he ended up with a landlord that was also very accommodating. His landlord never got paid in the last year and a half. So, but his landlord knew him, right, and was counting that he'd be able to make his way back out of the situation, right, But to unperson people, to make people, going up against this system, take away their bank accounts. Hello, I got that one. I was like, okay, this is it's a system that's meant to keep the people that are able to create and able to actually make a difference out of power, right? That's what it's all about. It's about keeping these people from getting enough power to challenge them. Because we will challenge them because their power is not legitimate. Yeah, they're just low life parasites.
You know, I was thinking about this, right? I think I would like to do like front lines undercover, right? And I'd like to go to the DMV here in Queens, and I want to walk in with like just a note, you know, and not say a word. Says that I'm an illegal alien, and I need a license or identification card, right? And see if I can walk up with a completely bogus name,
Oh,
no ID.
oh. Also, have it say that you're a deaf mute.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
See if you'll get a driver's license as a deaf mute who cannot drive.
Yeah, that'd be really. And just
If you're deaf, yeah. Well, actually, I might be wrong right there. I don't know. Maybe you can drive.
Well,
if you're deaf mute.
I think I'm just gonna not talk.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey.
that I'm embarrassed. I can't speak English, right? So I'll just draw up a note and go in and say, but I really need an ID. You know, because I'm a dreamer. Right? I'll say something like that, right? I'm a dreamer, so I really need an ID. And see if they give me a license. Because from what I understand now, this is directly from my father-in-law, who's over the auxiliary police for all of Queens, right? Like, so he's been with them for like 40 years. He's very well respected. They tell him lots of stuff, and he was telling me, he's like, they need to make room. So they expanded the school in the area that now it's twice the size, right?
So,
Almost like a prison.
So on this new license, is your first name or last name Tank?
I think it'll be like Tenquito, something. I'm gonna make it, Espanol with perfect accent. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm trying to think of a good. I thought this is my opportunity to get an official idea with any name I want, right? Like I'm gonna make a great name, like Steel Dangerfield or something, really, like cool and strong, like a superhero name. But if I could get Tank on my ID, wow, that would be great.
Yeah.
Tank Carlos Garcias. That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
And then if I ever get pulled over, I just give the cops my illegal alien ID, right? And I bet they won't do a thing.
Well, no, they're going to give you a prize. They'll give you like some vouchers for a hotel or something.
Yeah. Give me a hug. Thank me for
welcome you to the community.
Give me a gun. They'll probably give you a gun. Here's a gun and some cocaine. Go have fun. It's just they want to start a war, right?
Right.
That's why they're doing this.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, it looks like they were completely anything they had planned for Virginia didn't happen. It was very peaceful, and that was the best outcome. Right. So this is really who Americans are, right? And it's not about all these caricatures of the people, the white nationalists. Come on, like it's never been a problem even since I was young. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that there's a handful of people out there here and there, right? But literally a handful of people with some whacked out ideas. And and that's also on the same on any race. There's going to be some certain individuals, but these are individuals and their own individual actions that should be looked at. And if you can't label the people, you basically say these are the crimes, and it's not about thought crimes or your feeling crimes. The feeling crimes like anger management. You gotta like now take anger management classes, right? Because you're angry. How ridiculous. People are supposed to be angry You're supposed to be able to be angry, upset, and not go along with the things that are against you. And that's why this is all about mind control, right? Getting people to basically fall in line and not challenge them.
They want us to be ashamed to be white, ashamed to be men, ashamed to be hostile while you promote molesting our kids. Man, they can go to hell. You know, at some point, we should be hostile. Matter of fact, if you're not hostile, what does it say about you?
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, you're doing what? You're gonna vaccinate my child? I'm not there. You know, Michelle Walker, yeah, she doesn't really talk about this much publicly, right? But her daughter, even though she gave her daughter a letter or something to that effect, right, and already talked to school and said, my daughter is not to be vaccinated in school under any circumstances. They tricked her daughter. And back then they were giving the some kind of influenza virus, right, through like through a nasal mist of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And they vaccinated her daughter, and she had a major life-threatening response, like Steve Hodgson. Steve Hodgson, is that what it's called, or right?
Hodgkins.
But it's like
Hodgkins.
but it kills people. It kills people. I know this for a fact, and it is a horrible, violent skin rash compared to like a flesh-eating bacteria, right? They did that to her daughter at school. So imagine like your kid coming home, you have no idea what's going on with them. Meanwhile, the nurse just vaccinated them. Now they're poisoned.
Yep. They completely ignore the parents' wishes.
Like that to me is my God, are you kidding me? That is why we all have to fight. You know, that's one of the latest. One of the latest clips we put out there about the vaccines. We end it with saying it is your fight. Because it is. It's everybody's fight. Everybody has to be in this, and everybody should be aware. And I mean, it's because the whole thing, it's an attack on humanity on every level. It's amazing.
It is.
So I pray to God that Kim is bringing this money in now, and to the universe, to all the galactic councils, universal councils, whoever has a say in this. The only reason why the wait is worth it, the only reason I will be able to justify this wait, is if the money comes in through the people, and we get to decide who in the government gets money and where that money will be spent, because this government is the people's government. In fact, there shouldn't even be a government that isn't made up of people.
Right.
And we sure as hell shouldn't be funding United Nations organizations here to kill us.
Yeah, I mean, what we are faced right now with these non-governmental organizations are businesses that are not beholden to the people to do things that the government, quote unquote, wants to have happen. So this is just a way of getting out of their constitutional constraints, right? They want to fund only these too big to fail organizations, right? Because they'll make them all pervasive. It'll be out because the government can't get things done, but these GMOs can. Or not GMOs, government. Yeah. So these NGOs. So the NGOs are really where like Soros is getting money from the U.S. Treasury, and then going ahead and distributing that into the actions that he's doing to change the world, right? To upset the world. And so this is how money is flowing. It's a back door, and it shouldn't be allowed,
No.
at all.
And it's so ridiculous, when you think about it. The reason why these people don't get run out of the country, right, is because all the jobs they provide, right? But and this is why it's so important that this happens at the same time. If money comes in for people to have real humanitarian projects all over, right? So now we're funding. Now we create jobs. Lawful America right now, today, we would create over 20,000 jobs. Easily. Create 20,000 jobs overnight.
Yep.
That's one organization. right? And we'd be serving we'd be actually serving an unmet need of the people.
Yeah.
My gosh, it's incredible. It's perfect.
And so
But we've got we've got 600 organizations like that. 600 organizations that would easily provide 1,000 jobs each.
So
600,000 jobs we can provide.
So
in the next year.
check this out. Check this out. So we're now at 3.5% unemployment. 4% is considered full employment. So when you don't have enough people in the workforce, right? It's just that the people, there are people, but they're just not in the workforce, right? Because they just don't want to work, whatever the reason. They're retired, or they're they just had other things, whatever. But they now see that because there's all these other jobs out there, the price people will pay to fill the jobs will go higher, right? So that actually entices more people into the workplace, right? So these numbers, well, we'll go down to -1 employment, -1 unemployment, because we'll have this true absorbing people. Then people around the world, really will be needed to come into the country. And then but the value of those people will also be higher. So again, the bottom end is having higher amounts of money coming into their hands. Right? So you're, you're at 20,000 jobs overnight, pretty much, and that'll actually has an effect on everyone in the whole country, right? Because they get to experience more money flowing into the bottom end of the workforce. So the higher pay comes out, and there is no minimum wage in this that you're having to worry about. Why is that even an issue, right? If everyone is getting paid more and more just because there's more jobs,
right? Well, I thought about this. If I just had absolute autonomy, right, to rebuild the country, let's say like from scratch, I would make it required that every single town has their own, like permanent greenhouse that was that everyone contributed to, on some level, right? Either financially, some nominal amount, like $300 a year, or time, right? They actually had the option, put an hour in, right? Schools would come in, they would teach kids how the plants grow, how they communicate with the earth, right? And every single town would have, this massive, like 3 or 4 acre garden. It would feed the whole town with fresh fruits and vegetables, and they would come in. It'd be a place for them to learn. It'd be a place for them to eat, always know they could get healthy food, and explain to them what real food is, right? Immediately. Eliminate anything that has an extended shelf life that's filled with poison and things that we know is poison. Teach in the schools what is bad for the body, what is destroying the body. Teach what's on the labels of these things, and explain how we lived through a time where humans were poisoned all the time. And it was normal. We all accepted it. Teach them the real history of what's happened. Let kids grow up strong and confident and knowledgeable about what's going on, right? Actually make it so everyone has the opportunity to make enough money so that one income can support a family. And then make sure every parent knows you are responsible for your child. And by the way, that is what the Constitution says. That we're responsible for the education of our child, not a school, right?
Right.
And you could have schools, but every single school would have to be developed by the community so that they are actually defining and deciding, how is my child going to be educated? Because this is what's important to me. This is why I live in this community. And then they decide collectively, together. And then they are their own government. They're part of, the greater expanse of government, because we all agree and believe in being free and making our own decisions. And we can decide where we're going to live and what the ethical guidelines are that we live by. Imagine, because that is what our founders had in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they wanted. They didn't want us to, fold and turn into a new socialist, whatever we are. like this ridiculous. I mean, with all the money you think we pound into the economy, why is our infrastructure falling apart around the whole country? We have bridges here in New York that they've had to completely shut down because they were afraid at any moment they would collapse and kill thousands of people. The possibilities and the work that needs to be done is endless.
Yeah.
It's endless. There's so much to do here. There's so many amazing ways that people can express themselves and be innovative and make new things. It'd be incredible.
Right. You know, if you think about the purpose of banks in the past, right, under this original system, they were supposed to lend money. You make your business plan, and it's not based upon how many assets you had, right? It's just based upon the business plan, right? Hey, you want to do this? Are you a good risk? Are you a responsible individual? You're going to take this money. You've got a good plan. You're going to make a business. Here's the money. What if it just fails, right? What if it just fails? Well, it's just a write-off, right? But the money went out and went into the economy, rolled around, right? And came back into the bank at some point, 10 steps later. But what's the problem with doing that again and again and again? And let's say 99% of everything fails. Or even 100% of everything goes. That money still flowed out into the banks, right? It gets written off, right? Because it's the bad debt. But that money flowed into the hands of the people that were trying to do a legitimate business. That system would work, but they don't allow that to happen. They only make sure that you have enough asset that they can grab if you fail.
Right. They've taught, right, this mentality of, will you do what it takes? If you really want to get to the top, it's only through nonstop hard work. The harder you work, that you might have a chance. All of that is bullshit psyops, right? It shouldn't be hard work. Do what you love. You'll never feel like you're working. Right? And it should definitely not be nonstop and hard. It shouldn't be something where you have to sacrifice. You shouldn't have to sacrifice. The idea of sacrifice is something they created to make us think that to be successful, we probably have to give up happiness, right? But why? Why would I want to be successful if I'm not happy?
The only thing that should ever be sacrificed is when you decide to do something other than what you're doing. You're sacrificing what you were doing to do something else, right? And then again, it's about pursuing happiness, right? If that's what if you've changed your mind every 5 minutes, so be it. Right? I mean, you might get tired of that and hopefully figure it out that maybe you want to stay on something more than 5 minutes. But in any case, you're able to go out and create something, do something that you love. And if you don't succeed, you try again, right? If that's what you want to do.
Right. And you know what? And I actually took courses in grant writing and such, and it's $500 billion in grants in the United States. And this is 15 years ago. Went completely unrewarded every year. $500 billion. Every single dollar that goes out for grant funding comes back to the government and comes back into the economy and creates 15 times as much money. Every dollar. Yeah. So if you just funded $500 billion in grants, you'd end up with whatever, 15 times that, right? And so imagine that would have eradicated any debt we have.
Right. Well,
that would have eradicated poverty.
Yeah.
If they wanted to change things, they could have done it at any time. Why have they held back?
Right. Right, but what did they do instead is the QE1, QE2, QE3. They put money into the hands of the people with the most amount of money. And what they do is they stocked it away, right? Did it help the people? What if they put that into the hands of people who had mortgages? Right, just split it up equal. Okay, whatever it is, it's $500 billion. We're going to split up. Whoever has a mortgage, we're going to divide it by that many people. Some people get more than they need, some people get less, but overall, that now flows out into the world. Do you think that that would relieve, a lot of people from their debt misery of their mortgage? Right? And what would that effect happen with the money that they were putting towards a mortgage after that? It would have just caused an economic boom.
You know what? So this is the main core principle of the Green Lantern theory. The most important piece. Whatever we fund, they have to come up with a different metric to measure their success. Now imagine if money was not a measurement of success at all. That no one looked at what we call the bottom line today. No one even looked at it because it doesn't matter.
So
Because
you
you
can't
make money.
so you cannot base it in the yellow lantern of fear, and money being fear.
Right? Yeah, you can't be in fear. If you're going to be a green, and this is actually the principle. If you're going to be a Green Lantern business, you have got to spend your money, right? Because don't worry, there's plenty of money, right? So you got to spend your money and you got to put it to work, right? You got to put it to the money changers. And people were they stopped looking at money and they looked about how do I have an impact?
Yeah.
How do I make a difference, right? So when you're talking about healthcare, now you actually look at health. You actually look at, in New York, when President Trump, he put out that executive order that said, we're going to protect the religious and conscience freedom of the people, right? Now think about that. How could you fight that? 23 states sued him. Like, why? Because they created a system where all of these incentives were geared into the money so they could pay their bills. Because insurance is obscenely overpriced. And they try to act like it's all the production costs, the middlemen. No, it's not.
Right.
None of the things they're doing cost that much money. It's because they hoarded it away on the off-ledger accounts. And they hid it from the world. And I know, I've seen these accounts before. I know what these pharmaceutical companies, they're worth billions and trillions of dollars they have off-ledger.
Right. So a lot of people don't really get the amount of what I always did, called it the private side. What the private side of the money system is much bigger than what the public side is. So when you go into a retail bank, you walk in the lobby there, you're in their public retail side of banking, right? And what you get reports on, when you get economic reports and everything, it's all going to be based upon that money, not on what's going on inside, the private side.
Right.
Right. So there could be, hundreds of trillions sitting there that could be applied, to new businesses, but since it's on the public side is where they're only allowing money to flow, they cut off the private side unless you're on the in crowd, right? And that's when you had access to trading programs and all this other kind of stuff. So if you're in on the cabal side, you had access to this, right? But no one else, and so you're able to build, very successful business because you're not limited in money.
Well, right, because how easy, and really, that's what they're trying to stop. At the end of the day, what they are trying to stop is because we all think they're financial geniuses, right? Who made these incredible life decisions. They found a way. But it's not true. They were born into a family that taught them how to be sociopaths, to live at the expense of other people, and to measure their success based on how they conquered, stole, and ruled, right? Anything they could, infest and destroy, these things were rewarded. The more ruthless they were, the more they were honored and glorified in their twisted subculture of hate. So all of us, looking from the outside, would go, man, they're so successful. What do they do, right? And we would try to follow that model. It's so ridiculous when you think about it. But so what they're fighting right now is giving us the opportunity,
right,
to do the exact same thing, right? To do the exact same thing, and I mean the money side, that we could make money because you're giving me the money, right? So if you give me the money, and I can go buy a building, and I have no overhead, and bigger than that. I can take the same building and I can build a free energy generator. I never have to pay power, so I'm not dependent on your power. I can use an atmospheric water generator and I can get fresh water directly from the air, so I don't need to pay for my water. Now I have a building that's completely sustainable. Now I can actually, inside the building, build greenhouses right inside the building, so all the tenants inside the building now have fresh fruit and vegetables. Can you imagine the power of just one building? Now take all of New York City, do that every single building. You've now turned New York City into a truly sustainable community. In every building, you have a sustainable community. They don't want us to know. You could have done this the whole time.
Right.
Because that's all they did.
Yeah, it's
and we have no overhead.
You know, the idea of scarcity is what they keep, that there's not enough, so only a few get to do this, right? And if you're like really good at business, then you're able to make it happen. So I think Donald Trump going into he went into the casinos, right? So he was able to bypass a lot of the restrictions businesses have put in place, right, by playing their game, right, of making money, where it's just forked over in the casinos, right? So, but most of the people in the casinos are on board with the agenda, right?
Right.
So, so he was able to bypass. This is the same thing I saw in medical marijuana, right? It was outside of their system of control, right? So all this money is able to be generated, right? And it doesn't go into the banks, right? But it all is in a cash economy, right? And you're able to pay for things and get things done. I paid programmers in cash, right? And then they have then they go to their bank and they say, well, yeah, I got paid in cash, right? And so then they think, oh, it must be illegal money. There's nothing illegal about it, right? But but this whole concept of bypassing, the system, right? It was a crack in their armor, right, that they built, right? And so Donald Trump was able to make his way through and generate a lot of money, right, that funded everything that he was able to build, as in hotels, right, and resorts, and he was able to now to be in the circle, but he was just on the other side, right? Everyone looked and said, oh, he must be in their group, but he was just on the other side, and so he was able to stay out because he went into that area of casinos.
Smart. Very smart. Yeah.
And it's actually one of the first things he did, right? It was almost like he had a plan.
Yeah, almost. Well, all right then.
Are we good?
I think we're good, man. Good night. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the call. Everybody have a good night.
All right, everyone. Sorry for being late today. We'll see you tomorrow.
No problem. All right, man. See you later.